What is happening, every people? Welcome to the Mad Poet stream. We're going to do some composition today. We got Big Boss tuning in from Twitch. Hello, thanks for being here. Welcome. And of course, wherever you happen to be tuning in from, I do appreciate your presence here. Always a good time. And I'm just kind of hoping that my chat stuff ends up connecting correctly. It looks like it's slowly working on it. Celta Ray, hey, haven't seen you for a while. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. And I'm just kind of getting a few things organized. We're going to be working on composition for my next album, which will be my 67th album. And it is still really wild just saying stuff like 67th album. I don't think I'm likely to get used to that. Let's see if my chat thing is working. That's great. Cool. It's always a little different getting things in order for my composition streams. I do things very differently. I use a different checklist and the whole 9 yards. So let's turn some composition screen on. And this is actually what you're seeing right here is the closing song. I'm not going to be working on this one today. I'm going to kind of start on a fresh one. But this is kind of cool. I've got this. I wanted to experiment with the juxtaposition of a harpsichord and a piano. So it's not a common combo. It's pretty cool though. And I'm kind of digging the way that's coming out. So I've been playing with that a bit. And before that is this big, long, half-hour long monstrosity that is a tribute. I've talked about this a few times in my shows. This is a tribute song called Rain Over Nowhere, and it is going to be dedicated to a former guitar mentor of mine who really did a lot to help turn me into the guitarist I am today. I will not be, this is basically as much as you get. You get to see the sheet music. I'm not gonna be even playing the digital version of that until it's time to do the unveiling, so to speak, which I'm looking forward to. So let's get some tracks opened up here. You're sometimes a little bit messy getting started. But we'll start with rhythm guitar, bass, and drums showing. Let's put the lead guitar. Now let's start with that. I can switch that around pretty easily later if necessary. So what I do when I start composing an album is I start by composing just drums, and that's what you're seeing right here is drum composition. And I lay out the drums for the entire album before I do anything else. It's rare that that's not the case. Every once in a while, if I've got a guitar idea going through my head, then it's like, okay, let me get this guitar idea onto sheet music. But for the most part, it's just laying those drums out. And so essentially what we've got here is we've got the rhythmic device that we're going to use to build everything else on top of: bass, guitars, any other instruments, pianos, harpsichords, string section, synths, organs. These are common instruments for me to use. And I really like the building from the foundation up, and I consider drums pretty much to be the foundation of most types of music. Of course, if you are like my student Susan and you write for a choir, you're not going to start with drums. Something else, in that case, your melody may be your foundation, or some other rhythmic device may be your foundation. I want to, base this on quarter, eighth, and half notes in this, rhythmic way. But whatever you're doing, I like to start with my foundation. It's kind of like if you see houses being built, you never ever see houses being built from the roof down. I'm not in construction. Maybe you could build a house that way. I'm pretty sure there's a reason they don't, because that method just isn't very good. Kind of a guess, but I'm pretty sure that I've got a fairly solid guess on that one. I've never actually taken time to lay out the drums on stream, largely because it's kind of boring. It's one that a lot of times I'll even do without having the sound on, because I kind of know what the visual pattern should look like for the rhythmic patterns I tend to use. And also, I realized probably back, I don't know, around my 20th out or 25th album, somewhere in there, I realized that I had built myself a very large library of drum ideas. So I will often take an 8 measure section like that, maybe a 16 measure section, and just copy paste that into a new file and start making modifications to it. Because these aren't even things I got off the internet. These are just stuff that I laid out myself over time. And once I got there to a couple dozen albums, it's like I've got a lot of drum info. I've got a lot of drum MIDI set up, and they're mine. I can do anything I want with them. So it's kind of great having that kind of a setup. I think for our purposes here, that's interesting. You guys don't see, I just opened up a new window to change the size of the sheet music. And I just think it's going to make it a little easier for visual purposes here to have it laid out a little bigger. I often find myself blowing things up on screen just to make it easier for others to see. And I thought that would do a full screen. I was wrong about that. Okay, nonetheless, we're in good shape. So basically, at this point, I've got the drums laid out, and we've got a foundation set up for what we're going to do. So now I start putting in drums. I start putting in bass and guitar. And one of the first things I thought of with this song, Ghost of the Crow, is I really like using the minor sixth sound, particularly when we resolve down to a perfect 5. I think that works really well. I've used that in a lot of places. And I was in the shower earlier, the shower thoughts, and I was thinking this ought to start with minor 6. So basically what I'm saying with the minor 6 is it's the relationship between the lowest note and the highest note. There's only 2 notes being played there. So if the lowest note is counted as 1 in a scale, then the highest note would be the 6th note in the scale. In a minor scale, then the 6 is in a minor position. Now the major 6 is more like kind of a rock and blues, which is really cool. The 6s in general, I think, are just great intervals. With the major 6, you see those occasionally in my music, but it's a much more kind of up sound. And of course, we're doing heavy metal here. I mean, this song we're writing is called The Ghost of the Crow. This is not a happy song. We're not going for happy here. Great song title, by the way. Well done, Randy. Cell 5. So let's we got to pick out a key. Kind of feeling C sharp minor on this, and this is something that there's no magic behind picking out a key. It's just like, I think I'll do C sharp minor here, or I think I'll do B minor here, or whatever. I do like to have a variety of keys throughout the course of an album. I don't know if this could be placebo on my part. It's easy to say that people will get bored if they hear the same key all through an album. I don't know that that's really true, though. I don't think very many music listeners would probably pick out that's even going on. There's the same key or different keys. I've asked people when I've done live shows, do you hear a difference with all those different keys? And they're like, nah. So I don't know how much credence to give to either side of that, but let's start with a C sharp, and we're going to add on a 6. So we now have an interval of a 6. That sounds Ghost of the Crow-esque. Now, the way I'm kind of imagining this is kind of some like drone chords. So they're going to ring out for a little bit. And let's put this, get a note in bass here. Get a C sharp there. So now here, what I may end up doing, may put in the E note, and so that would be the 3rd. So now we're going to have a 1, 3, 6 resolving to the 1, 3, 5. And again, these are just numbers in the scale, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes of the scale. That's kind of what I'm thinking. We can put that into the tablature, make modifications there. So this is the first part of our song. And I will iterate throughout the course of this because this is just very important for general understanding of doing your own music. Save often. Like here, I've only put in 4 notes, but I've saved this. And so if the power goes out now, I only lose 4 notes. In fact, the last time I had, I forget if it was a power outage or the program just froze up. I mean, these things happen. The last time I had something where I lost any information, I literally lost 1 note. It was a cymbal on a drum composition. That's the way you want it. I get people all the time like, oh, I did this thing for 20 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour, and then my computer shut down. The program stopped responding. The power went out. It's like, well, if you have a system where you only save once an hour, then you stand a chance of losing an hour's worth of work. So saving is easy. Control S. This is not this really hard thing to contemplate what you're going to make your decision-making process for saving your work. That's not the way it is. So save often. And I think I'm kind of feeling here some 8th notes in this particular measure. That's what I want. A thing I like to do sometimes is, and I feel like this is a bit of a Randy type of a thing, is actually start on beat 2 of the measure. And this, I'm not feeling it as much all of a sudden. And this, I get a lot of people talk to me about how, and the big thing is, you need to be comfortable with your decision-making process that will lead you to make a change or to make a deletion. And I've on stream before, I've had things where I'll just compose 4 measures, 8 measures, and just be like, that sucks, delete. And I don't even have a second thought about it. That's really the part that you need to get to where you can make, okay, it's very easy to become emotionally attached to your own work. Very easy. And it's a bad idea. Because you say, oh, well, I put this note in there, so I want that to be right. And then you get that kind of fear of deletion and fear of change in your own work. And it makes it tough. Osu Gamer, welcome. You were asking a while back about composition streams. Here we are, composition streaming. And then what I think I'm feeling here is I want to do another one of these in another position. And so the thing about the minor 6 that I'm using here is it only happens in a few positions in the scale naturally. So what my ear is hearing is a half step down. Now this will put the bass out of range. So here I'm going to go ahead, because I put this on the root. I've got this on the 3rd. So this is now on the 5th, which will work fine. Maybe put it on the root instead. I'll experiment with that. But now, so here, this is going to be a major 6. And we were talking about that a moment ago, the kind of that difference between the... So this may not work so well. And let's give this a listen in place. There's a couple things we can potentially do with this. That actually kind of works for me. I'm kind of digging the major 6 in that position. Now, I generally like the minor 6 better. And so it's always acceptable to simply modify your notes. Let's see here. I've got a G sharp, so I want to go to a G natural. I was trying to do that a different way and it was not working. So this would make it the ultimate test is just give it a listen, see what you think. That's actually not bad. I don't know which of those I like better. Let's try this out here. Let me try. So that's what I've got on screen right now. Let me try this with the major 6. Wow, I think I'm going to leave this as the major 6 for now. I think that's kind of what I'm liking a little better. Okay. And this I'm not convinced of. I think maybe if I were to do this and it's sometimes just one note being changed in there can make a real impact. I think I'm going to make this into a dotted quarter. let's see here. Do I want this on the B note? I feel like let's hear this in context. Oops. Let's get that copied over correctly. So this is going to end up being okay. I think I can work with this. And of course, I may come back through this tomorrow or later tonight or whatever, and just be like, you know what? Not digging it. Not into it anymore. And make changes. So, like I said, I think that's kind of an important thing to keep in mind, that's a good way to do it. It's good to be willing to add, change, delete, whatever. Not sure if going that low is going to be what I want there. No, that might actually set me up here where I'm going to go. So one thing I do is I'll lay out these sections. Intro, A section. There'll be a... What do I got in this one? So if we look down here, you can kind of see things laid out. These dark areas are where information has been put in, so we can see where we've composed. Light areas have nothing in them. So we can see like the drum staff that will color itself there. That's, all the way through the song. But I kind of look at my sections. I got an A section, B section, a break, another like B section, another break, another A section, and then I've got a C section. I love that. I love the C section. And so I can kind of use that to get an idea of how my song is outlined. And that moving this is going to give kind of, if we resolve to the E, we would be in E major. If we resolve to the C sharp, we'll be in C sharp minor with this key signature. So the notes we're using are C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. So we got the 4 sharps. That's what we see over here in the key signature. And so this would, if we were to resolve here, it would kind of give it more of a major S kind of a feel. But going from the Ionian to the Aeolian, as it were, from the 6 to the 1, can be a good kind of anticipation. And I think maybe if I go to a B here, so that would be the 7. So basically, if we have C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, it's the 7th note in the scale. And in a minor scale, that doesn't lead us back quite as strongly as it does in a major scale. The position of the 7th note is slightly different in those scales. But it still works really well. It's still very comfortable to go from there. So that would, I'm kind of hoping that's going to set us up for a C sharp of some nature. And so the other option would be to go at it from the 5. Well, I shouldn't say the other option, an other option. No, I'm totally digging the 7 better on that. And so let's go to the 2 on this. No, because that would be the E again. Because I was thinking that would be the 3 of 7. Maybe go to the 5 of 7. And so when I say things like 3 of 7, 5 of 7, so if it's like rearranging where you start counting from. So if I start counting from, the 7th note in the scale is a B note. So I go B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. So that would be the 5 of the scale. And I think I've got of the 7, because it would be the 7th note, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this totally doesn't even make sense. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if I start from the 7th note. It's one of those things you really kind of got to get in and start experimenting on sheet music and counting out your scales. It's something a lot of people kind of, there's a bit of a struggle there. So, because I'm on a G sharp, so that's actually the 5 of the scale. So the 5 of 7 will be an F sharp. Now I've got it, which means that's my 5. So my 3 would be a D note, which would be out of range on a 4-string bass. I think I'm gonna roll with that. I think I'm gonna call that good. And let's see what else we got going on here. And I'm just kind of continuing to check my chats and stuff. I'm not clear on why Picarto is no longer coming up on my multi-chat. That one's no longer connected. I don't think I normally get any viewers on that website, so it's okay. But that one used to be like just really, really solid. It would connect all the time. And I also used to have this message in there. There it is. Okay. So Picarto only interesting. So Picarto connects when there's a message in it, but not when there is not. That's kind of cool. Good to know. Good to know. They're all completely different, and I do not fully understand it, but it's crazy Mad Poet stuff. So there we go. All right. So again, just kind of, oh, you know what I did not do, and this is because when I start up a live stream for composition, it's just different than when I start up a live stream for a show. And the checklist is a little different. I don't actually have my chat up for Rumble, which I don't think I normally get many. I've only ever had one person actually chatting on Rumble. Very cool person. And they were talking about the possibility of doing a collaboration. They never did contact me on it, so if you're out there, feel free to contact me about it. But let's actually get that up and running. Cool. Rumble chat is up. Rock and roll. Okay, I think we're looking good. Cool, let's continue with our composition stuff. Oh, what did I just do? I changed my screen around. There we go. All right, and really, you know, when I compose, this is basically how I think. I just think in numbers. And the advantage to thinking in numbers, for the music theory geeks out there, the advantage to thinking in numbers is if I had been doing this in B minor or C sharp minor, which it is, or D minor or whatever, the numbers are still the same. A minor 6 is still a minor 6. The 1 of the scale is still the 1 of the scale. The 5 of the chord is still the 5 of the chord. So the numbers remain the same. And for me, I like thinking that way because it gives me this kind of cross-platform for keys, so to speak. So that's what I do. That's how I have that work out. All right. And so basically, you know, sometimes when you're learning music, you hear about chord progressions. And they're often, again, they're done in numbers. So here, this would basically be a chord built on 1. So my chord progression is 1 of a C sharp minor. And then we go to the 7. So far I've got a 1-7 chord progression. And you can do all kinds of fancy stuff within that. And a lot of times we think of a chord progression as more like so from a 7, from a 1 to a 7. That's the exact same chord progression. It's just done completely differently. And so if you're going from the 1 to the 7, that's a 1-7 chord progression. How you do that, what you do within that, can have crazy amounts of variation in that. So here, the chord progression is the same, but now we're playing. Completely different sound, but still the same chord progression. And so a lot of times, it's just, so, for example, if we think of All Along the Watchtower by Bob Dylan, most famous version by Jimi Hendrix, that is actually a 6, how does that song go? It's a 1-7-6 chord progression, right? And there, the Dylan version, of course, sounds completely different than the Hendrix version. One cool thing is Dylan actually did the Hendrix version in one of his concerts. So Dylan covered Hendrix covering Dylan, which is just so cool. And both versions of that song are brilliant. I've actually got a version of All Along the Watchtower that I have started composing quite a long time ago. I've recently been kind of blowing that through my brain to think I might start working on it again. But maybe we'll do just a 1-7-6 here. And it's not going to sound anything at all like Watchtower or Hendrix, because I have a different style. So let's pull these in. So there's a 1-7-6. Of course, you got to watch for your out of range notes in a case like that. So that's a 3. That's fine. And then this, again, on the 6, again, we are going to be basically inside the Lydian mode, which has a major 6. And again, sometimes we find the major 6s work like it did here. This could be really cool. So let's see how this fits together. And you know what? The whole time I was talking about this, I was saying it was the 6. My brain was not working correctly. It was the 3. It would have been. It's an inverted 6. When you start getting into inversions of stuff, these numbers get so wonky, and I'm just totally here for it. Major 6s, who knew? Let me try this one. So we're on an F sharp here. Let's make that an F natural. And let's see if that works. No, I think that oftentimes being in key works. It's always okay to be out of key. I didn't like the rhythmic pattern I was hearing in this. That I like better. All right. And let's see if we want to change anything else in here. Okay, I get a sense of where I'm going to go with this. This one might just go straight across. I think that works in the guitar. And then what we might do here is let the bass kind of fiddle around with some stuff. And we're going to use this to lead to an E. fifth of that. So when we use just the first and fifth notes of a chord, normally a chord is composed of the first, third, and fifth notes of a scale, or the first, third, and fifth notes of any position in a scale. So I could go to my second note of the scale and say, now I'm going to call this off. If I'm in a C sharp minor, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the eighth note is the first note again. That's a C sharp again. So we start with a C sharp. When we get back to a C sharp, we can call that an 8, or we can call it a 1. And so I can say, okay, first, third, and fifth notes. Cool. Now I can go to the second note of the scale, which is a D sharp. And I can say, okay, now if I count this as 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and play just the first, third, and fifth notes, 1, 3, 5, I end up getting a diminished chord in that particular position. The first one is a minor chord. If we play that in root position here, which is the basic triad. So that's the 1, 3, 5 of 1, 1, 3, 5 of 2, 1, 3, 5 of 3 gives me a major chord. So generally we think of a triad, which is the recipe for a chord, as a 1, 3, 5. So you could say I'm playing the second, fourth, and sixth notes, but that's not how we typically will reference a triad. And so if we don't use that third note, then we have what's known as a power chord, because it's the third note that actually makes a chord either major or minor. And just by changing, so there I have just a first and a third. So that's technically this would be a D flat major because of enharmonic equivalence, and then a C sharp minor. For our purposes, we'll just say it's a C sharp major and a C sharp minor. It still works. It's still technically accurate. But that's the difference between a major and a minor right there. And if we do this in like a full bar chord, there's the third right there. There's the third note of the scale. I have a first, a fifth, another first, a third, another fifth, another first. So we have all these repetition. Now if I make that third a minor third, and hopefully you can hear the difference between those. So some people don't hear. It took me years to be able to hear the difference between a major and minor third. And I sometimes see people on, particularly YouTube educators, and it's almost like it bothers them that other people don't hear this the way they do. Because some people get this stuff and their ear it works. For me, like I said, it took years. I was probably playing guitar for 15 or 20 years before I could just hear a standard chord and know whether it was major or minor by ear. And so, yeah, it's crazy. So here I think I'm going to do this where I bring this chord in on, or bring these notes back in on the 2, or I should say on the and of 1. I think that, so that's basically our intro section. Let's give this a listen and see if we like it. No. Okay, and I totally see the mistake I made. So what I did here, I like the first 2, but not the third one. So what we did is a complex sequence. Jack, if you happen to be watching, Jack is one of my students. He stops in occasionally. He's probably not on. If you happen to be watching, this is something you and I have been talking about, and I'm doing a much more complex version of it. So a sequence is when you take, for example, if I was to go 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, 8, 5, 7, 9, that would be a sequence. And so you're taking, so basically that's 1, 3, 5 of 1, 1, 3, 5 of 2, 1, 3, 5 of 3, of 4, and on and on. So you're taking the same, basically, mathematical sequence and moving it to a new position. So, and that sequence can be very simple. It can just be like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, which is a great sequence and used in a lot of places. But what we often find in composition is when you do a sequence, if you do it 3 times, you've done it 1 time too many. And that's exactly what I'm feeling in this. So even though I still want to go to a 6 here, so I've got basically, as a chord progression, we've got our 1, 7, 6. I don't want to follow the 6s. These two are almost an exact repeat of one another, just down into the next position in the sequence. That's not what I'm looking for on the third one. I want to change that sequence. So I like the chord position. I don't like the chord progression. So we're going to change this around. And what are we going to do here? Let's actually go to the 5. Oops, wrong screen. Okay. And then the 6. And then on the half note, let's get into some chords. All right. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Oh, that was still not what I wanted to do. That is, let's try that. Put that in the bass. Yeah, that's better. Definitely. Except I think I want to turn this into a quarter note and put this here. All right. Cool. I'm digging this. I'm going to hide that second voice there. And this is something, what I'm doing here, you see we got these blue and green notes. And so this is multiple voices. And so it's a really good way to say I want this note to continue to ring while both of these notes ring. Except in this case, I think instead of going to the 6, I may go to the 4. Ooh, and that's going to be an augmented 4 in this case. Yeah, that is the metal feel I want right there. And that augmented 4 is known as a tritone. A lot of times people mistakenly say that a tritone is a diminished fifth, and that is technically, excuse me, choking hobby. So is a hobby and a habit combined? A hobbit? I think it might be. We might have discovered hobbit evolution here. I recently was told that carbonated water is good for if you're having trouble swallowing. So I've been experimenting with that. So yeah, technically a diminished fifth is not a tritone. I don't want to get overly pedantic here, but it's a common misconception. Now, also technically, it's the same two notes. An augmented fourth and a diminished fifth are in harmonic to one another, meaning it's two different names for the same note. But it's true that it's only a tritone in the event that it is an augmented fourth. So in this case, this is a tritone. This is in fact an augmented fourth. And now I think I'm going to go to an F sharp here instead. And so let's modify these. So what are we on here? F sharp, let's go 3. Let's put that on a 4. Look, let's listen to this whole thing here now. See if we like it. I think that's pretty close. This here, I think we need to move that over one position. And I think we might want to put the note from the bass on the guitar and the guitar on the bass. Better. So let's try that here as well. I think the guitar going lower and the bass going higher in that case. I'm liking it. Maybe one of each over here. Give that a listen again. Actually, I think this beat 4. Maybe just have the bass move. I think I like that better. All right. And of course, I have saved this probably over a dozen times since we got started here. Kind of digging this. Let me give that another listen. Yeah, okay. Save that again, even though it was already saved. Because I would rather save more than less. It's like if the file's already saved and you save it again, it doesn't hurt. It's kind of like, the whole type 1, type 2 error. And it's if you hear something that could be dangerous and you assume it's dangerous and you're wrong, that's good. If you assume that it's safe and you're wrong, that's bad. Type 1 error, good. I assumed that it was dangerous and I was wrong. Cool, now I'm safe. Type 2 error, I assumed it was safe and I'm wrong, and now a piano fell on my head, or I got attacked by a rhinoceros, or any of the other crazy stuff that happens to me all the time. There's always, ninjas and archer samurais attacking in my town. It's just constant. It's very exciting out here in Eastern Washington. All right, so now what I can do is I can take this intro that I have written out and just copy paste it into the other sections where the intro belongs. And sometimes I will change around, I'll have an alternate version of an intro or whatever. I see that quite often in my own music. But just put these in place, and when we get to that point, if I feel that I need an alternate version of it, then I will create. And I'll always make some sort of a note. I'll just put an asterisk on the intro or whatever, so, some kind of I'll put an alternate in. Call it alt intro. But yeah, start filling space in right away like that. And here I started on the intro. I don't always necessarily write my songs in order. I don't always write my albums in order. In fact, on this album, I did write the tribute to Ron Smith first, and that's this whole large blocked out section here. There's a blank section in the middle that just those tracks are not showing. That's actually, it's got some acoustic guitar, synths, and then a synth choir. The only thing I think that might still need a little work on this is that choral part of the interlude on this particular song. I listened to it about 10 minutes before I started the stream, and I'm like, actually, that might work. I'm going to need to listen to it a few times. I feel like there are a few places I may just need to kind of slow it down a little bit, make it a little bit less busy to get the feel I'm going for. But other than that, I think that song is pretty much ready to go. And that's why I want to get in here and start writing the rest of the album, because this is going to be very cool to have a tribute song to my mentor, Ron. He was a pretty awesome dude and great guitar player. Absolutely fantastic. And when I do the actual show, I'll tell the story about the importance that he had just in one thing that he said to me when I was 17 years old that just completely twisted up how I think about all of this stuff and changed the course of how I approach playing guitar. It's like awesome. So one of the things I'm noticing here, so I'm looking at this A section, and it looks like a fairly long section. So there's 8 measures. This looks like it's probably a 32 measure section. And a lot of times that'll just be an 8 measure thing basically repeated. And so it looks like I've got 16 measures there. And then there's going to be a copy of those 16 measures, but I've added in a hi-hat on the second half. And so this, it's, again, when it comes down to the structure of what I'm doing with a piece of music. So I've got this 32 measure thing that I could easily think of as 2 16 measure sections. So, or you just, a 16 measures repeated, or I could think of it as an 8 measure section repeated 4 times. Yeah, there's really no right or wrong in this. Maybe it's 8 measures, maybe it's 16. We tend to find, and I remember, I feel like I learned about this in counterpoint study. And I definitely teach this in counterpoint study with my students. I've had 4 students go through counterpoint with me, and I really enjoy teaching counterpoint. It's awesome. It's one of those things that if you're into music, you do not need to learn counterpoint to be good at composing, to be good at playing. But those people who do go down the pathway of a study of counterpoint, across the board, they're like, this is such great stuff. It's definitely something that will be of benefit to you, but it's not something that's necessary. And that's, like if we think about exercise is definitely good for you. You don't need to be a bodybuilder, right? You don't need to be a marathon runner to get benefit from exercise. You can go out and just, run a couple miles a day or walk a mile a day. It's going to be very good for you. You don't got to be like, Cameron Haynes or David Goggins doing, or even Randy Haynes, and running 6 miles a day. You don't need to do that much. I think it's a great idea too if you've got the time and you've built up to it. But yeah, so counterpoint is that kind of a thing. It's like, it's great, it's there, it's kind of the marathon of a lot of different aspects of music. But the information you get for, like Susan was my first student that we went through a complete study, and I teach it as it's a concept known as species counterpoint. And she is not a contrapuntal composer by any means, but that information we still talk about. She's my longest term student that I've ever had. I've had her, I think, for over 10 years now. And we'll still be looking at her compositions, be like, oh yeah, totally using some counterpoint ideas here, and she loves it. And every student I've had go through it has enjoyed it. Not every student has gone all the way through it, but it's always great stuff. So just kind of thinking, a lot of times, even if I'm going to write, okay, let me back up. What I was saying is what we learn in the melody writing in counterpoint is that there's kind of a limit to how long a melody is going to be viable. So if you try to write a 32 measure melody, most likely the listener's ear is going to cut that into smaller parts on their own. And I think that the same thing is probably true of any musical pattern that you do. The ear is going to hear it as multiple sections. So I often think about it like that. So it's, off the top of my head, I can't think of a 32 measure guitar pattern that I have written. There may be some. I have done a lot of music. There are a lot of places where I have a 16 measure thing, and then that repeats, which was kind of what I'm thinking about here. And then in my brain, when I do that, I actually think of that as, okay, let me write 8 measures. Now let me write the next 8 measures. So I kind of think of them in sections like that. And then I'll just repeat those 2 8-measure sections, which, whether the listener hears it as a 16 measure thing or 2 8-measure things, they may hear it as, 4 4-measure things. Oh, gotta go. I did not realize how late I started, and I have a student waiting for me. I am